And last but not least, we have Barbara Pearce from the City of North Vancouver.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a very fast year. I'll be speaking about an 18-story mixed-use building that will be constructed of mass timber. We're excited about this one for a number of reasons, including childcare, the housing component, a North Shore Neighbourhood House, which those of you who are unfamiliar with a neighborhood house concept, I'll go into that when we get into the breakout session, and also the mass timber concept. That was a key part of our project drivers in terms of sustainability and made in Canada. I'll be speaking about who the City of North Vancouver is, why this project was important to us, and why we thought it was important to jump on the BC Builds bandwagon. So, yeah, I look forward to speaking to you in the breakouts.
Great. Thanks, Barb.
Great. Okay, I just wanted to talk first about the City of North Vancouver, where we are and who we are. I'm Barb Pearce. I'm the Deputy CAO here. I've been here for about 14 years, and so I'm project lead for the North Shore Neighborhood House redevelopment. We call it the Hub. So for those of you who don't know the City of North Vancouver, we are on the North Shore in Metro Vancouver. This year, our mayor and council are very proud that they were awarded the Globe and Mail's Most Livable City. That ranks communities across Canada, across categories such as housing, climate, healthcare, safety, and public amenities. How did we get there? We have a very ambitious council. We're known as being a very ambitious city that's ready and willing to do things a bit differently. And I think this project encompasses all of those things, being ready, willing, open, and ambitious. Our council set out a vision in their strategic plan of being the healthiest small city in the world. They have initiatives that help us guide the organization in how we spend our time and what things we do. One of the key components of the strategic plan is always identifying the how. Should we provide this? Should we facilitate this? Should we partner on this? Or should we advocate on this? Many times it's a combination of all of those things. And in terms of the BC Builds project that we're working on, being ready to both provide, partner, advocate, and facilitate was one of the key factors in making this a success. So today I'm going to talk about our partnership on an 18-story mass timber project that we're developing along with BC Builds, Catalyst Community Development Society, and the North Shore Neighborhood House. We went from project initiation to construction in 14 months. It was quite a hectic 14 months. So it is a multi-partner project on a city-owned parcel of land. And I'm just going to show you, let me go to my next slide, the contexts. Um, Essentially, for those who don't know, this is about a 15-minute walk to the C-Bus. It's in our Lower Lonsdale neighborhood, which is quite an urban area. There's a number of high rises in the neighborhood. There's also a lot of low rises, older housing stock, rental. And so this site is a city-owned site that's been used for community purposes. It's our North Shore Neighborhood House, which is a community service hub that provides our food bank, youth programs, child care, seniors programming, a number of really key community services to the neighborhood. We're a 1 block walk to Lonsdale Avenue, which is our main commercial thoroughfare. And the existing site, pre-development, was also a site that has a park as well as community gardens and an old residential house. So the idea of redeveloping the site came through council's vision to increase the rental housing in the neighborhood as well as supporting community services. This vision prompted our council to look at the opportunities. What could we do to really ensure that we're ready to actually start construction? The neighborhood house is an old building. It provides those critical services that the community needs. So they knew they needed to do something. And so what that something was really being ready to be open for partnerships. So what the city did was city-led rezoning in 2021. We had a couple of groups that were looking for a home. We had Catalyst Community Development Society, as well as Care BC, which is a respite center, looking for a new home. We had our site. We said, let's go through this rezoning process. The city led it. We did the OCP amendment. We created the development guidelines. We didn't know exactly what this thing was going to look like. We just knew the what was going to go on the site: housing, community supports. When we did the rezoning, we went for the 18 stories because it's consistent with the community. We also said it was important to replace the park when when all the housing was done. So we had a good story to tell the community when we went through that very public process. The community overall was very accepting and liked what we were proposing in terms of the density and the balance of community services. We did say we can't do it all at once. Number one, because we needed the North Shore Neighborhood House to stay in operation throughout. So we went into a three-phase redevelopment, with phase one being that respite center, as well as the 89 units of below market housing. So that's being delivered through Catalyst Community Development Society. They've been under construction for about 2 years. And what really started the journey with the BC builds was our mayor and Ravi Callan at the groundbreaking of phase one. Our mayor turned to Ravi Callan and went, "Hey, we're ready to go on phase two. Come on, get going." And I think that spurred a lot of conversations offline. And so when the city basically signaled that we're ready to go, things started to happen. So phase two, as I noted, will be that's the project that I'm going to be talking about, the neighborhood house, as well as more rental housing. And then phase three will be our park when we're done. So I think that early conversation with the Minister of Housing that we were ready really was opportunity, and our mayor and our council being very ambitious to say, okay, we don't know exactly what, but let's get going. We need the housing. And that led in January 2024 for our council to direct staff to expedite planning for phase two. And it provided a lot of opportunities to do things differently, including making this a mass timber building, which at that point there was only one other 18-story mass timber building, which is up at UBC. And so we used that as our model. And at the same time, the provincial government was going through a lot of mass timber guidelines for municipalities on how to deal with those to also help accelerate timelines. So the 18-story building that you see on this slide, it is 179 rental homes, and funded through a variety of sources, including BC Builds. It's not the only funder, but it is the primary funder. The interesting thing about the building, it is a number of uses all in one. So we're talking about multiple partners sharing the building. Sharing can be hard. We had to design around two very different uses, being the 3-story podium for the North Shore Neighborhood House, a very community-oriented facility, and then 15 stories of the housing on top. The mass timber drove the design of the building because we were looking to be able to really accelerate the timeline. Let's do this easy, make it easier on ourselves, just, so the design of the neighborhood house had to go through a very different process than we would normally do, where we would typically go through design development over a couple of years to make sure we had everything perfect. We acknowledged at the beginning that, sometimes a B plus is okay. The other complexity that we had to run through, both from the city and Catalyst perspective, was funding. So on the city side, we had anticipated doing the North Shore Neighborhood House in 2028, 2029. We didn't have the money in our bank account to be able to actually start construction on a capital project of this size. So instead of waiting till we had the funding, we went through an AAP process, which is called alternate approval process, and that's a method that municipalities can get a loan from the provincial government. It's a very public process. The public can challenge the municipality taking that funding. And so they do that through reverse petitions. So basically, we have to tell the community that we're intending to take a loan. The community has 30 days in which they can challenge or say, we don't like that. If more than 10% of the electorate say no, you're dead in the water, you're not going ahead. Luckily, we only had about it was less than 1% of our population actually said no. So we were able to proceed. For Catalyst Community Development Society, they received some startup funding through Van City, and their other funding through BC Builds also helped with the startup. And so with those two things, we were able to proceed. Um, the another project complexity I wanted to talk about is procurement. So those of you working in local government, you know we have very strict rules on procurement and doing things very publicly. To make this timeline, to do it in 14 months, we had to do things differently, and we received approval from our council to sole source to the Catalyst Community Development Society. Without that sole source, I don't think we would have made the 14-month process, because typically when the city does put up land for development, you go through a very public RFP process. You have to evaluate different vendors. Catalyst, because we'd worked with them before, we knew what they were coming to the table with. They knew what we would be coming to the table with. And when it was a much easier and more streamlined negotiation. And at the end of the day, council's decision to sole source was based on the fact that we wanted this housing very quickly. So going to my next slide. Opportunities. So we were asked to talk about what worked, what did we learn, what was tough. On the opportunity side, it really allowed us internally at the city to do things differently. It improved our internal coordination for big projects. We had our project acceleration committee with BC Builds. We set up an internal project committee here that put together every department in the city so we could keep things moving and figure out where the big challenges today. The other thing that we also did for internal process was to embed some of our planning and development staff with Catalyst development process. Sorry, I'm just going to take my mic offline and cough for a sec. Sorry about that. So essentially, as they were working through the building permit submission, the planning and development staff would go and work directly with the project architect to make sure that our staff knew what was coming in, and they worked through challenges before that submission actually officially hit our tables. That was a bit unique and a bit of a trial. I don't think we would do it with every development project and every developer, but it substantially accelerated our timeline here because our staff knew the building inside and out by the time the plans hit our system officially. So in terms of decision-making processes, we didn't have the time to really go through everything over and over and over. Any of you who've done large capital projects, you know, sometimes in design development, you can be like, that can go here or it can go there. We didn't have the time with it. We designed this building so quickly and just went with it. There were refinements along the way, but the big blocks were as they were initially planned from the get-go. We did not have time for changes. The cons, I already noted in my previous slide, the funding, that was tough. And it could have stopped the project, and we just had to hope that everything was going to work out. On the Catalyst side, I think one challenge that they were faced with was when they had to submit for their building permit, you have to pay that fee to get your building permit. They didn't have the money. We worked out a little a deal to help them along the way. But in terms of financing on the development side, there are challenges, and you just need to be creative. Same with the legal reviews. We had a lot of legal agreements, especially because we were sharing the building as opposed to just a housing building. So we had to negotiate shared space, common spaces, things like that. Another key challenge was every city's busy. I know your cities are the same. You have a lot of projects going on. We actually went to council at the very start and said, if you want this in an accelerated time frame, you're going to have to let us slow down other city projects, which they did. So that was another key thing to know that this was our council's key priority. And they said yes. And then partner adaptation to the facility constraints. North Shore Neighborhood House was an amazing partner for us, and they were willing to really work with us and the constraints of the building design, and we made it work. So their space is going to be wonderful. Could it have been different if we had more time? Yes, but at the end of the day, they're getting a much um, improved building in a much improved timeline than was ever possible without this BC Builds opportunity. What helped pre-zone site, if we didn't have a pre-zone site, there's no way we could have done this in 14 months. That would have just been the rezoning timeline. We had pre-existing relationships with our partners, so that we knew who we were working with and what we needed to do, and we just did it. And then our advanced program planning. Catalyst knew what they needed to do. North Shore Neighborhood House, they knew what services they needed to deliver, and we just made it happen. Okay, I think that's it. This is from groundbreaking day. Um, and you can see it's a big team. It's not our whole team either. There's a lot more people than that. But there we go.